Right, so we're looking at the general election campaign itself, fought because the People's Budget couldn't get through the House of Lords. And of course the key bit of the People's Budget that annoyed the Tories and the House of Lords so much was the land tax provision.
That's right.
This was going to make land be taxed at its unimproved value, which obviously hit home at the landowning classes, and the Tories had blocked the bill. Now in Southport that had a peculiar manifestation, didn't it?
Well, it did, particularly when you think in Southport you have the big landowning families, the Scaresbricks, the Heskeths, and going down the line to Crosby, the Well-Dundles. Also what you've got to understand, Ian, is there was a big deferential Tory vote. You know, if you were a tenant of the local squire, you tended to vote the way the local squire's politics was. In fact, until fairly recently, there was this deferential Tory vote, I think, throughout the country, not so much prevalent today. So that was a very big issue, that the whole land tax issue, and De Forest made that one of his chief planks of his campaign. Interestingly enough, and I digress slightly, and other things he spoke about, he wanted to bring old age pensions for everyone under the age of 65. When the government brought it was only 70.
That's right.
And he said it should be 65.
Right.
I think getting 5 shillings a week.
It was 5 on Lloyd George.
That's right, the Lloyd George was 5 shillings a week. Well, the other thing he did, which is quite interesting, although nationally we as a party campaigned for a stronger navy, we wanted I think pay for 4 more frigates. He talked about, he could see there was problems in potential problems in Europe, and he said that they should be very seriously look at the armaments bill and try and reduce the armaments bill wherever possible. We shouldn't waste money on the necessary armaments when there's a lot of poverty.
Well, yes. This is a big argument about whether dreadnoughts should be built or not. The dreadnoughts versus pensions argument.
That's right. And of course the local Tories challenged De Forest. And said, well, you don't actually own any land in Southport or anywhere in England, come to that, but you do own half of Europe. Slight exaggeration.
But he was a very rich man, wasn't he?
Oh, incredibly wealthy.
Yeah.
I mean, his adopted parents left him very, very comfortably off. And he had that much money, didn't really know what to do with it. But he didn't, for some reason, buy property in England. And they challenged him. And there was a public meeting in Southport, and the chairman of the meeting said, if you believe in taxing the land, undeveloped land, why don't you buy it? It'll only cost you £500,000. You've got plenty of money. Why don't you buy it? Not for one moment expecting that De Forest would accept the challenge. Right. And De Forest had already commissioned what he considered to be the value of undeveloped land, which he said was £585,000. He said, well, I'll lodge that in a bank, and I challenge the landlords to sell me their undeveloped land. Right. Of course, nobody accepted the challenge. As I say, it rebounded on him very slightly because there was a very nasty eve of poll meeting where Edward Marshall Hall was summoned to speak. Marshall Hall had been the MP for Southport.
That's right. He was a barrister, wasn't he?
Barrister. Yeah. He was a brilliant barrister, very good way with words. He wasn't a very good parliamentarian. He was a disaster in Parliament. But he wanted to get his own back, really, on the nasty Liberals who lost his, he blamed for losing his seat. And he had a particularly nasty go at De Forest, basically saying he's trying to buy your votes by offering this paltry sum. Right. Although it was more than they thought. More than they thought. It was really most unpleasant. And he said, really, what it's probably after really is what does the foreigner know about the British Parliament? He really wants a seat in the House of Lords. Right. Interestingly enough, I digress here. When it came to George V considering about creating maybe 500 Liberal peers, he said he would have no hesitation to commit to if necessary to create 500 Liberal peers on one condition. That Baron de Forest wasn't one of them.
Oh really? He was that unpopular?
He wasn't popular with George V, but he was a great pal of Edward VII, and there may be a reason for that, but we've got time to go into that.
There are rumours of it.
Yes.
Right. Well, I think that tells us a fair bit about the man's character anyway, doesn't it? And there was also this scandal surrounding his wife, wasn't there? There was allegations that he...
Well, there was interesting stories about his wife and his wife's family. His wife's family were a very wealthy Catholic family in just outside Wigan, a place called Garswood. That was his local connection. He married into a local Catholic family. and unfortunately they were very strong Tories.
Right.
The first Lord Gerard, that was his wife's grandfather, had been created a Tory peer by none other than by Disraeli.
All right. Right.
And when he spoke, when he was adopted, they made it very clear they didn't approve of him and his politics. Lady Gerard appeared on a number of Major White's platforms.
Yes.
The Baroness de Forest's brother, the Lord Gerard, should have spoken at a public meeting where Curzon was going to address. Right. Maybe deliberately he said he was otherwise engaged. Right. Having said he sent a letter condemning the idea of land taxation. And anyone who promulgated was really talking a lot of nonsense. But so that was terribly bitter. But yes, the sequel of the election was that there was a De Forest. He seemed to go to barristers and solicitors and courts and drop a hat, and decided very ill-advisedly to sue his mother-in-law.
Did he really?
For saying that he somehow ill-treated his wife.
Right.
The case failed. Not that he didn't prove that, but a star witness he was going to call didn't show, so he had to throw in his hand.
Right.
And as a result, he wasn't able to prove that. It was suggested, and it all came out in this. I've got the Daily Graphic report. What happened, and it all came out that his wife had matrimonial misconduct with a young guardsman abroad, which I think is another way of saying
yes,
a bit of nookie.
Indeed.
Yes.
Bit on the side. With a variation of the guardsman's defence.
Yes.
Right. Well, that's it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.